Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of The Snake Pit. I'm your host, Son of Bad, and about 7 months ago, I took my first attempt at a conspiracy, true crime iceberg, whatever you want to call it, type video. That was the Columbine iceberg, and how I came across that was one night while I was searching the web online for, something interesting to talk about for you guys, like whether it's true crime, horror movies, video games, or whatever. I came across the Columbine iceberg. Now, I'm not unfamiliar with conspiracies regarding mass shootings and serial killers. I, in fact, have several books about it, which are very interesting. Maybe even those might be videos one day. But anyway, besides the point, I found this list and I thought it was really interesting. And of course, for those of you familiar with iceberg videos, you'd know that the further down you go, the crazier shit starts to get. And this particular iceberg had a whole range of things, going from facts, bizarre coincidences, and even conspiracy theories. I thought it was interesting enough that I did a whole hour-long video about it, but I figured there has to be more cases where, this just gets crazier and crazier. Now, I didn't want to do a conspiracy iceberg and rip off Wendigoon's thing, so I figured there has to be another isolated incident, another true crime case where there's layers on layers, and I stumbled across the Virginia Tech shooting. Now, this happened on April 16th, 2007. I actually remember when this happened. It was a horrible shooting, one of the biggest mass shootings in American history at the time, killing 32 people and injuring 17 others. Of course, this was topped by the Orlando nightclub shooting 9 years later. But yeah, this was a really bizarre one. Virginia Tech is also a pretty weird school in and of itself. Those of you may not know, the CIA is actually known to do scouting programs out there. I believe it's for computer science and technical types. But Langley Falls CIA headquarters, like the thing you see in the beginning of the American Dad video, that's a real building. It looks exactly like that, and it is not that far away from Virginia Tech, which is located in Blacksburg, Virginia. More on that later, but yeah, I thought this would be an interesting video, and sure enough, searching on Google, I came across a Virginia Tech iceberg. Now, mind you, it was a lot of facts. I didn't really find any of the conspiratorial stuff. For that, I had to go on Liefeld and Love's channel because I know he had done a bunch of stuff about the V-Tech shooting, and I had to go through a couple books like Program to Kill and some of that other stuff to see if it was mentioned anywhere. A lot of random research went into it. So essentially, I reached out to the guy on Reddit who wishes to remain anonymous for various reasons, maybe due to the controversy this video might stir up, or whatever. He basically lives near Virginia Tech, about 20 minutes away, and I reached out and was like, yo, can you give me some definitions on some of these, or maybe give me some theories or like the scoop on anything around campus? Like, what are people saying about this case? Like, are there any bizarre theories that people may not know about? And he sent me a list of all the definitions, and he basically told me all he knew, which was a lot of valuable information that went into this video. The more controversial or conspiratorial information I obtained was from Liefeld and Love's videos. You can check those out. The Program to Kill stuff, very interesting. I also got information from the Wayback Machine, articles written around the time the Virginia Tech shooting happened in 2007. Blogs, people posting stuff here and there. There wasn't a lot of information, but the stuff I did find was pretty interesting. Like the Columbine video I made before, this is in no way made to profit off the Virginia Tech shooting. This isn't meant to be disrespectful to the victims in the shooting. After all, 32 people were killed. This is more so for just discussion, something to talk about. I don't want to say really entertainment or content because that just sounds pretty shitty, but yeah, more of a discussion point. I mean, I feel like we should be able to talk about this, in a free form type of environment, discuss conspiracies and theories and everything like that without, exploding or anything like that. I'm in no way advocating people to go out there and be, internet sleuths or try to be a detective, because that can lead to a whole bunch of complications in the legal system and a whole bunch of problems. You might not always be right with this stuff. It's just, it's not proven until it's proven, unfortunately. But without further ado, like I said, this video is more for speculation and conversation. I hope you guys, well, I don't want to say enjoy because that sounds fucked, but I hope you guys get some value out of this video. And without further ado, this is the Virginia Tech shooting iceberg. Kicking off the first tier, we have the date April 16th, 2007. This is when the shooting took place, comprising of 2 attacks on the campuses of Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University in Blacksburg, Virginia. This shooting was responsible for the deaths of 32 people and wounding 17 others, and it was perpetrated with 2 semi-automatic handguns. The shooter committed suicide, and 6 others were injured jumping out of windows trying to escape. The second item on the tier, which, by the way, this has been marked down with white as solid fact and red as more theories or conspiratorial or, creepy types things, just as a way to clarify everything so it's not all seen as fact. The second one is violent video games are to blame. Some of Cho's acquaintances, Cho being the shooter, have claimed that he was really into games like Counter-Strike. And of course, the news ran with this and tried to use video games as an explanation or scapegoat for the shooting. We saw this with Columbine. This even happened as far back as the 70s with Stephen King's book Rage. Essentially, whenever a tragedy, a shooting happens, people try to prescribe blame onto something other than, the person. They try to push it onto video games, music, movies. Basically shifting responsibility is the name of the game in this case. But we all know that violent acts have been going on since before video games were ever a thing. Now, there have been studies that show violent video games and violent media may not help people with an anti-personality disorder or an antisocial disorder, I should say. But to say that these things are the springboard to cause these types of atrocities, I think is kind of bullshit. There was no video games during the Amityville shooting, you know what I mean? I just think it's a moot point and kind of bullshit. Anyway, on to the next one, chain locked. Now, this one basically is the perpetrator, Cho, had chain locked one of the buildings. This was Norris Hall, and he did this to ensure that he would get a higher body count and make sure that no one would escape. This shooting, again, was perpetrated by one person, whereas the Columbine shooting was perpetrated by 2 individuals, and just insane shit. The next one is Brewis Hall. This is the main administration building on the campus. The memorial for all the victims of the shooting is shown in front of the building near the drill field. The next one is Ambler Johnson Hall. This is where the first 2 murders took place. Around 7:15 a.m., Cho murdered freshman Emily Hilscher, and after hearing gunshots, a senior Ryan Clark went to help Emily, but was murdered in the process. Now, I always thought this was really spooky and really weird, and kind of fucked up on the school's part. A shooting happens at 7:15 where 2 people are killed, and I'm pretty sure most of the campus, or a good chunk of it, had known the shooting had happened. The school didn't go into lockdown. Nothing was put into halt. And keep in mind, this is after Columbine had happened. You'd think people would take better precautions to ensure that the shooter would get caught, but no, classes remained open and everyone was going about their day like nothing happened. And then the shooting happened later at, I believe, 9:30. More clarification on that later when I go into my notes. But there was a 2-hour gap between the first few murders and the massacre that happened later. And I always thought it was really fucking weird that the school didn't go into lockdown after the shooting, and especially after people knew it had taken place. The next one is Norris Hall. This is where the second attacks took place. This is the main shooting, essentially, and a total of 30 people were killed here. Very fucked up shit. Again, he locked the doors to make sure no one escaped, and then after the shooting, he had committed suicide, but we'll get into that later as well. The next entry on the iceberg is bullying was the cause. Like many school shootings, it has been suggested that bullying may play a key factor in these spree killings. While not conclusive, it has been noted that Cho was a quiet and introverted young man, and as a result may have been singled out or bullied for his behavior and demeanor. It has also been pointed out that he may have also been bullied for his racial heritage. He was Korean, but I haven't really found any information to back that up. It has also been noted that he had previously been diagnosed with selective mutism and severe depression. During much of his middle school and high school years, he received therapy and special education support, and after graduating from high school, Cho enrolled at Virginia Tech. Because of federal privacy laws, the university was unaware of Cho's previous diagnoses and the accommodations he had been granted at school. Again, this has also raised an argument that because the school didn't look into him or wasn't able to, the situation couldn't have been stopped a lot sooner. This, in with a few other entries, we'll see that Cho had a lot of antisocial behavior. He might have actually even come off as an early day, what we would call now an incel, based off of how he would, how he would act around women. But again, these are all things we're going to get down to later. This whole diagnosis thing was taken from Wikipedia. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's the information I got there. And the last item on tier 1 is Hokie stones. This says that 32 Hokie stones, a symbol of school pride at Virginia Tech, were placed for the 32 victims of the tragedy. This obviously does not include the perpetrator, because, I mean, like, fuck them. Alright, so that was Tier 1. Starting off Tier 2, our first entry is the package to NBC. The perpetrator sent a package to NBC News before he committed the acts. This package contained videos of him brandishing guns and writings about why he felt he needed to commit these acts. Essentially, he sent in a manifesto, kind of like the Columbine basement tapes. And NBC actually broadcast a small portion of what they received, but received public backlash from victims' families, and also they didn't want to air the whole thing because they were worried it would inspire copycat killings or it would glamorize Cho to the wrong people. The next entry is 9:40 a.m. 9:40 a.m. is the time that the Norris Hall shooting began, and the first 911 call to report the shooting was phoned in at 9:42 a.m. So yeah, about 2 hours after the first shooting. The next entry is lack of background. The United States Citizenship and Immigration Services would not give out any information relating to the gunman, and the media was unable to contact Cho's parents. V-Tech spokesperson Larry Hinkler said, quote, "We are having difficulty finding information about him," end quote. Again, this is one of the more conspiratorial ones. It is also very creepy that there wasn't any information about this guy, leading up to or after the shooting, and everyone kind of drew a blank on it. It's just really weird shit. The next entry is Henry Lee. Henry Lee was a victim of the massacre. He is seen as a hero because he helped his teacher block a door from the killer, but this failed as Cho was able to push through the barricade. Lee was one of the first to be killed at Norris Hall. Rest in peace, Henry Lee. The next entry is V-Tech Rampage. This is a very tasteless video game released in around the shooting time, about 2007, 2008. Like Super Columbine Massacre RPG, V-Tech Rampage was a controversial video game based on the real-life mass murder. Essentially, this was an early shitpost released on Newgrounds. This game has you play as Cho as he shoots his way across campus. While controversial, this game lacks the, some would say, depth and effort that was put into Super Columbine Massacre. Super Columbine Massacre, while extremely controversial and fucked up, it actually had a point. The creator tried to illustrate the possibilities as to why this shooting took place. While a tasteless game, there was some structure behind it, whereas this game, V-Tech Rampage, is essentially like an Atari looking game where you're just shooting people. It's really fucked up. I actually remember playing this, I think, once when I was a kid, not knowing exactly what it was, and then I searched up V-Tech, and then was like, oh shit, that's right, the shooting that happened. But really fucked up, but of course on Newgrounds of all places. The next entry is Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine was the senator of Virginia during the time of the massacre. His response to the tragedy greatly helped his political career, and he was one of the first people Barack Obama considered to be his vice president and was running mate to Hillary Clinton in 2016. So, like a lot of true crime cases, a lot of murder cases, the people involved, politicians, police officers, this greatly influences their careers later on down the road. This was one of those pieces of shit, I guess. I mean, all politicians are pieces of shit, right? Sorry, gotta hit the geek. The next entry is bomb threats. Now, a week before the massacre, the school was evacuated due to bomb threats. After the shooting, these threats were ascribed to Cho. However, 3 days after the massacre, another bomb threat happened. So this could also lend into the two shooters theory or the multiple shooters theory. This is just another incidence of some weird shit happening before and after. It's not unlike criminals, and it's not unlike criminals to do this kind of shit. I mean, Zodiac did this shit after, he killed people. He'd call whole members of the family and, leave breathing voicemails. So, if there are multiple shooters, this could be one of them just fucking with people. Really spooky shit. The next one is international media coverage. Mainstream cable news sources reported on the tragedy, as they always do when something like this happens. It was used as an excuse to further their agendas for gun rights, health services, and other major talking points. Essentially, the media, as much as they want to act impartial, as much as they want to act like, good guys just doing their job, a lot of the times they're just reading a script for somebody else, whether it's a senator, a politician, whoever, a lobbyist, they're just saying what their sponsors want them to say. So, the long and short of it is some fucked up piece of shit shot a bunch of people. Fucking end of story. It's a fucked up thing. It shouldn't have happened. There should have been better security. For a school that the CIA apparently scouts at, you would have thought that someone would have been able to get the drop on this fucker, like a security guard, and blow his fucking brains out before it went this far. But yeah, as far as the media is concerned, they can eat a dick. But yeah, that was tier 2. Starting off tier 3, we have Seung-Hui Cho. He was the perpetrator of the attacks, and to this day, we still don't have a clear motivation as to why he decided to commit these attacks and kill this many people, but many theories suggest bullying, mental illness, and failed mental health treatment as reasons why this happened. While I feel it makes up part of the explanation, I don't feel it is the full explanation. There are plenty of hurt, mentally ill people roaming the country, but they don't go around shooting up schools or killing a bunch of people. Now, while it's becoming a more prominent issue within the country, I don't think it's, again, the definitive explanation. I feel like there's a lot more going on behind the scenes, but yeah, that's just my opinion on that. The next entry is stalking female students. Cho stalked female students and acted menacing towards them. He was detained by campus police, then was sent to a nearby private mental health facility where he was deemed an immediate danger to self and or others as a result of mental illness, but Cho still ended up on campus. This is another example of administrators and the system plainly just dropping the ball and kind of letting this happen to a degree. Like, I'm not saying this was deserved as this is what you get type thing, but I don't understand why whenever these psychos are fucking in lockup and they're off the streets, the system kind of just lets them back out, and then this crazy shit ends up happening. I mean, there are some things on this iceberg and some theories that explain why this happens, and we'll get there, but holy shit, if there is no, if these conspiracies that come up later are just false, then what the fuck are these people doing running these facilities? They're just letting these crazy pieces of shit run free to do this crap, man. It's fucked. But yeah, the next entry is 2 hours between killings. This refers to the time gap between the killings at Ambler Johnson and the main mass killing at Norris Hall. Some wonder how Cho wasn't caught between this time frame, and the school gained a lot of controversy for this, and rightfully so. I mean, I mentioned earlier, this was a really big fuck up on the school's part. I don't understand how, especially after Columbine, 2 people get killed, and then a 2-hour gap happens where no lockdown happens, and then it basically just opened the door for this guy to just continue shooting. He was like, okay, I got 2 and no one caught me, so I'm going to go through with the rest of the plan, and he killed way more because of it. Really, really fucked up on the school's part, but yeah, I digress. The next entry is George W. Bush. George W. Bush was the president of the United States during the tragedy, and he spoke at Virginia Tech to help comfort the surviving families. The shooting prompted the state of Virginia to close legal loopholes that allowed individuals adjudicated as mentally unsound to purchase handguns without detection by national instant criminal background check systems. It also led to the passage of the first major federal gun control measure in the U.S. since 1994. The law strengthening the NICS was signed by President George W. Bush on January 5th, 2008. Wow, that was a lot. The next entry is training. Now, Cho killed 32 students and injured a further 15 in approximately half an hour. That's shooting one person multiple times every 30 seconds. Any firearms expert or police officer will tell you that it is very difficult to get a kill count that high without serious training. Do you really think video games could provide for that kind of skill? And, there's a lot of people saying that he went to shooting ranges, but, these are still targets. Your adrenaline's pumping, you're running around, your mind's all over the place, and you're hitting moving targets. You have to have some form of discipline or training to be able to pull that off, because I don't know, look at Columbine. Those guys were not professionals by any mean, and their shooting showed. This guy, it's kind of like the that theater shooting where it was one of the chest, one of the head. He was doing military execution, double taps on people. It's really fucking gnarly and really weird. It's just really, really weird, freaky shit. The next entry is hollow point rounds. This was the type of ammunition Cho used in the attacks. It resulted in more severe injuries to the victims. More injuries, more pain, and ultimately more high chance of death. Really fucked up to get hit by a hollow point round. That was pretty much to ensure that he really fucked up or killed anyone that he hit. Yeah. The next one is the deadliest school shooting in U.S. history. This one's pretty self-explanatory, as to this day it is still one of the deadliest school shootings in the United States history, with a very high victim toll. Again, I mentioned this earlier. It was topped 9 years later in 2016 with the Orlando nightclub shooting, and it just seems like this is getting more crazy and more out of control. But yeah, that was Tier 3. On to Tier 4. The first entry here is General Cho. This is in reference to the people that sickly idolized Cho, and they gave him the moniker General Cho as a nickname. People essentially use this to glamorize him. It's kind of like those weird fuckers that do that, like, really, I don't know, it's that weird gay Japanese, like erotic art, like for the Columbine killers. It's like the same shit. There's a bunch of weirdos online with no lives that fetishize these sick fuckers and essentially want to fuck them. Really gross shit. Next one is HSMF. This stands for Hokie Spirit Memorial Fund. It was founded to honor the victims and help prevent tragedies and provide mental health services. Yeah, I mean, no offense, but look how well that's gotten. Clearly the money didn't go anywhere. Fuck. The next one is multiple shooters. This is a more conspiratorial one, if you didn't know. Like Columbine, witness reports claim that there were multiple shooters during the attack. During the initial news reports, it was suspected that 2 shooters were involved at the Virginia Tech shooting, maybe due to the similarities with Columbine and the 2 shooters there. One of the incidences says 2 witnesses, one of whom had been shot, both said in a television interview that they quote didn't recognize the shooter, and that quote he reloaded very fast and looked trained and was wearing all black. Park Chan-min was quoted as saying, quote, he hid his face behind a mask and had his brown colored cap lowered to his eyes. He wore glasses and something like a black ammo jacket, end quote. One conflicting report claimed that the shooter was a 6-foot-tall Chinese man wearing a Boy Scout outfit, then later hunting gear. Cho was in reality a Korean and a relatively small guy wearing a beige vest and a black t-shirt. An initial report from Fox News stated, quote, a government official with knowledge of the shooting said the gunman had been arrested, quote, end quote, then proceeded to show photos of a man being arrested. That is the photo in this specific tier of the supposed 6-foot-tall Chinese man. The next entry is Kevin Granada. Hopefully I said that correctly. Granada was a professor and another victim at Virginia Tech. He is also seen as a tragedy hero, as he chauffeured students into his office to keep them safe, but was ultimately murdered when he tried to intervene. Rest in peace, Kevin Granada. The next entry is Columbine. Columbine references the mass shooting that took place in Colorado on April 20th, 1999. Cho idolized Eric Harris, who was one of the 2 killers, and is said to have been inspired to commit these actions by the shooting in Colorado. The next entry is Caerleon St. Albans. This is a mental health facility that Cho stayed at on December 13th, 2005. Cho was taken by police to the psychiatric hospital of New River Valley Community Services Board. While there, Krause, the physician who examined Cho the same day, declared Cho was found, quote, mentally ill and in need of hospitalization. He noted that Cho had a flat affect and depressed mood, and that Cho, quote, denies suicidal ideation and does not acknowledge symptoms of a thought disorder, end quote. The physician also noted, quote, his insight and judgment are normal. Cho, suspected of being, quote, an immediate danger to himself and or others, was detained temporarily at Carlton St. Albans Behavioral Health Center in Radford, Virginia, pending a commitment hearing before the Montgomery County, Virginia District Court. On December 14th, 2005, Cho was released from the mental health facility. After Cho's release on the same day, Virginia Special Justice Paul Bennett certified in an order that Cho, quote, presented an immediate danger to himself as a result of mental illness, end quote, and ordered treatment for Cho as an outpatient. However, Cho did not receive the treatment which had been ordered, as due to Virginia's health system, neither the court, the university, nor community services officials followed up on the judge's order. Again, released from a mental health facility, people said, hey, this guy needs to be watched, he's a danger to himself and others, and no one did fuck all about it to check up on it. Red flags were flying, and it just kind of went on, and no one did fuck all about it. Really messed up shit. The next entry is serial numbers and receipts. Reports say that the weapons Cho used had the serial numbers, quote, obliterated, yet the same report says that a receipt for a Glock was found in his backpack. Why would he take the time and energy to remove a serial number but keep the receipt? And why would he do this while committing the crime? Like, the strangest thing of all is, why would he remove the serial numbers if he planned on committing suicide? The theory states that the only plausible reason to remove the serial numbers from the guns is to remove any ability to trace them back to their real origin, which in all likelihood in this case is probably not the gun shop. Yeah, that's more conspiratorial shit, but that's how I get once my brain starts rolling. I start connecting the dots and the shit gets really freaky to me. That was the last one on tier 4. Into tier 5, this is where shit gets really spooky. Now, kicking off tier 5, we have, quote, repeat Columbine. This is a direct quote that Cho said he wanted to do. This should have been an immediate red flag to administrators. This is something that people had heard him say. A few years after the fact, you'd think that, a country in mourning and on high alert, with all the shit about terrorism and stuff, they would have seized this opportunity to arrest him, but no one did, and they just let it pass. Maybe they thought, oh, the small little meek Asian guy isn't gonna actually do that, he's just talking. Who knows, man? But like, it's really fucking cooked on their part, man. The next entry is the Marines photo. This was uploaded instantly after the shooting, like within the same day or the next day, essentially. And then the weird thing is, it disappears and then reappears on April 19th, but this time with the second man and the Marines logo cropped out. This picture is the one that I used to represent tier 5. You can see it right here in the video. Really creepy shit, and it may be my conspiratorial brain going, but I mean, first of all, it's fucked that this photo got uploaded in the first place. And second of all, it's creepy that it got re-uploaded on the 19th, which is, it's kind of a day for a lot of these mass fucking murders. I mean, or tragedies and shit. Like, you got Ruby Ridge, you got the Oklahoma City bombing, you got Waco. Columbine was supposed to happen on the 19th, but it got delayed because of, I think the ammunition didn't get delivered until the 20th. But it's really fucking weird that this got posted on the 19th. But again, that could just be my conspiratorial brain rattling off. But yeah, really weird photo. It's right there for y'all to see. The next entry is CIA recruitment programs. Like I was saying earlier on in the video, it was kind of a known thing. I mean, I knew about this, when I was first looking into the shooting way back in the day. And it's even weirder now that that the CIA headquarters is right there. But it was kind of an open secret that the CIA did scouting programs at Virginia Tech. Like I said, this was probably for computer and coding types, people that could work on defense programs and shit. But yeah, essentially after the shooting, almost all links and info regarding CIA scouts and programs just disappear off the face of the earth. It's almost like they were trying to cover their tracks or something. Cue the X-Files music. Fucking weird though. The next entry is MK Ultra, also programmed to kill. Now this one could take up a whole video on of its own. If I get my wheels rolling, this might be a fucking 6-hour video, so I'm just gonna spare that. But essentially, this theory points that Cho could have been selected for MK Ultra. The long and short of it is, in the book Program to Kill by Dave McGowan, it states that serial killers and mass murderers are usually placed during a time in the country's history when an unfavorable event is happening, like the Vietnam War or the Afghanistan War. There you'll start seeing a lot of serial killers, cults, and mass murderers popping up, because the idea is, how are people going to be worried about what's going on overseas when they don't know what the fuck's going on in their own backyard? In the 70s through to the 80s, it was serial killers and cults, but it seems as though with the 90s and into the 2000s, it was mass shootings, and it's been happening more as mass shootings now. Again, this could be a conspiracy. This is a conspiracy theory. It's not proven to be true, but it's still one that I tend to hold in the realm of possibility compared to some of the other shit floating around out there. Really weird shit. I highly recommend you guys check out Lowfield and Love's channel. He did a couple on the V-Tech massacre. He's done a lot of videos carrying over Dave McGowan's work, and it's a seriously slept on channel. The guy puts in work like a fucking beast. I wouldn't, be on track to doing these videos or having the info that I have without him or the books by Dave McGowan. So shout out to them. The next entry is Cho executed. Reports claim that Cho's face was, quote, disfigured by his suicide, which is strange, at least to me, because the weapons he used in the massacre were a .22 caliber Walter and a 9mm Glock. Now, I'm not a ballistics expert or anything, but those don't seem like two guns that could disfigure your face beyond recognition. Yet, student Chen Chia-hao said he, quote, opened fire to the back of his head and blew up the front part of his head, which made it difficult to identify him, end quote. Another witness report also claimed that Cho killed himself with, quote, a bullet to the back of the head, end quote. Entrance wound, back of the head, exit front, impossible to pull that shot off. I think it is. I feel like if you did that, you'd at least break your elbow or wrist, which there isn't any reports in the autopsy that indicate he had a broken arm or wrist. It seems like a very, awkward and impossible shot to, pull off unless you dislocate your shoulder or something. But, yeah, it's just weird. The last entry on this list is Blacksburg, Virginia. Now, there's rumors that there's a secret government laboratory located about 7,000 feet under Butte Mountain in Blacksburg, Virginia. Supposedly, this institute works with DARPA to create weapons such as, quote, robotic human mind control. And this would tie back to the whole program to kill MKUltra thing, with the government creating essentially killbots, as they said in The Simpsons, like the Killbot Factory type deal. Now, I'm not one to dismiss this or to completely say this is true, yet again, if you know me, you know this is one of those theories I tend to be more passive to and tend to believe a little bit more, because it's been proven MKUltra was a thing. It's been proven that the U.S. government has tested on not very well people, mentally or not. It's just done a lot of fucked up shit. This whole murderer fucking list, you look back far enough on them, these people have ties to law enforcement, they have ties to military, they're in institutions where MKUltra and stuff went down. In the case of Whitey Bulger or Charles Manson, it's insane that for some reason a lot of these fucking murderers always get tied back to the same institutions and the same experiments like MKUltra. Again, not saying this is what happened here with Cho and the Virginia Tech shooting, but it's an interesting thing to think about. And if you guys are interested in MKUltra and Program to Kill or any of that stuff, like I said, check out Lowfield in Love. Check out the books by Dave McGowan. Also, The Ultimate Evil by Maury Terry. I can't remember the guy who wrote it, but Chaos, the book about Charles Manson. There's a lot of stuff out there. This goes deeper than just MKUltra. This goes into smearing political opponents. This goes into funding wars. This goes into the snuff industry. This goes into the drug trafficking industry, human trafficking. There's so many facets that MKUltra and murderers just sprout off into, and to cover all of it would be a very, very long video. It would probably borderline on schizophrenic to some of you, but hey, if that's what you guys want, maybe one day I'll go through the whole Program to Kill thing, and we'll see how schizo the spider web gets, But yeah, I hope you guys found this video interesting, somewhat informative. This was my Virginia Tech Iceberg, V-Tech Iceberg. It was actually a little shorter than I anticipated. I was expecting this video to clock in at about the same length as the Columbine one, in about an hour, but it's probably because there wasn't as much information about Cho or the Virginia Tech shooting other than what's already out there. Kind of had to dig a little deep, and information was scarce. If the MKUltra CIA shit is true, then that would explain why information was so difficult to find about it. But this video actually took about the same length to make, in all honesty, including editing and stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, I hit the Pennifer Aniston really hard, and right now I'm starting to feel the effects of the fucking diamonds. I'm starting to get a little retarded and shit, so I'm gonna cut this short before I start droning. But it feels good to get back into doing true crime and these iceberg videos. They're pretty fun to do. I mean, making the icebergs and ordering the video and editing it isn't fun, but being able to discuss this stuff with people who find it interesting and make this content is really worthwhile. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see more icebergs, if you got any suggestions on, maybe even individual things from icebergs that you want me to talk about, feel free to drop a comment down below. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.